when you're dealing with private schools, private Christian schools with parents who are paying, a lot of times parents will say, well, since I'm paying, I want this and this, and we have to say, this isn't Burger King, you can't have it your way. And we have to let them know you're not gonna come and pick and choose. Well, I want my child in this, and I don't want him in that, and that's just not what we're gonna do here.
Welcome in to this latest edition of Making the Leap. Glad to have you along. We always get interesting guests here at the Herzog Foundation, people that come through and we meet either because they're here taking maybe one of our trainings, or maybe they're just taking a tour. And when we meet really high-quality people that we think you ought to meet, we call them and we book them on the show, and you're going to meet two high-quality people today. Jonathan Houpe and Mia Thompson are both administrators at a Christian school not too far from us.
And it's Nia, and
it's Nia.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Nia.
Sorry.
It's Nia with an N. We actually practiced this before the show, and we still screwed it up. I'm sorry. Nia Thompson, both administrators with Harvest Christian School, which has been around for, get this, and I think we've only talked to one other school in Indiana that has this heritage. 35 years.
Coming up on 35. Isn't that amazing?
It is. Nia, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. We're just excited. I've had to mark it on my calendar, and she's reminding me, don't forget. So I woke up this morning. I woke up early like I had a basketball game, and I'm like, I'm going to be on TV. And so it's amazing.
You guys are young. I mean, can I just be honest with you? To be administrators of a 35-year-old Christian school, I assume there were people prior to you that were administrators, but
much older. They were much older.
Yeah. How did you get into this?
So I have been teaching at the school. This is going on my 9th year.
Okay.
So last year was our interim year as administrators. And so I always wanted to be an administrator of a school. My goal was to have my own Christian school. So we got into that last year and started the school year off. And so it was kind of like we were just put in the right place at the right time. And we walked through this school year. We figured out some of the things that we wanted to increase and make better, how to increase our early learning center and get it full and fully enrolled with our students so that we could, and within that pre-K 4 classroom, we could automatically roll them over to kindergarten. And we have a larger 8th grade graduating classes. So yes.
So you are a K through 8th grade school then? Or are you all the way up through
6 weeks to 8th grade.
Oh, so you've got like little babies,
yes,
little
ma'am.
ones. That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
What a cool thing to start, like that feels ministry-ish to me versus not just the idea of just school, because when you start young like that, it is a way to keep kids in.
Our former church does preschool, but that's it. That's where they stop.
Right.
So that's unique. In fact, I don't know that
think we have
ever talked to a Christian institution that's done pre-K. What do people need to know about that?
Like
with our early learning center, it starts as early as 6 weeks all the way through 4 years old, but we have separated them through on opposite sides of the building.
Okay.
A little bit of the backstory. So our visionary, our pastor started this, which just stay-at-home moms, 2-parent income households 34 years ago.
Okay.
And he wanted to provide Christian education for kids in the church. And it started with just 20-something kids, and it kept growing and growing and growing. He said, well, I think I have a school now. And so it started with just the early learning center. It just started with those nursery kids. And then it grew with those moms who necessarily didn't have that much schooling or college education, went back and got their education, and now you have Harvest Christian School. And so that's where it started. So now we're ELC, which is our 6 weeks all the way through 4 years old. They're on a different side of the building. They have their own plan, So on the school side, it's a whole different ballgame. It's K through 8th. And we've just been trying to do the best we can to propel it and push it forward and carry on the vision that we've been entrusted with.
Go ahead.
Well, you were talking about that this is a 35-year tradition now. How did that start for you guys? Because we hear so often that churches struggle with the concept of opening a school. Clearly, your pastor leaned into it some 35 years ago.
How did it start? Well, he had 5 kids.
Okay.
And really, the public school back then obviously is much better back then than it is now. Not to say that it was great at that time, but just really wanted to protect his kids and let them learn and let kids be kids. Wanted to protect them from a lot of the things that were out there and train them up the right way. You know, we believe train up a child in the way they should go. When they grow, they won't depart. And really, really leaned into that and kind of trusted his gut and trusted what God told him, and he went with it. And from then, some things most people say churches don't do schools. and God told him to do it, and from then on, that's kind of how we got here.
I feel like that's what we keep hearing from people that actually, whether they experience pushback from a congregation or not, is, you know, their answer is like, well, God kind of just put it on the heart, and you go with it, even if you're going to meet some resistance. But it sounds like maybe he didn't at that point have too much resistance from the congregation itself, because you're attached to a church.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're, I would say, symbiotic then together, you're together.
And the church started first, and then the school came later.
And then the school. Okay.
And then I think the parents asked once pre-K 4, you know, because that's where it used to end.
Sure.
And so the parents asked, well, can you go further than this? And so that's how it went to K through 8th grade. And at one point, it was high school. We went all the way to high school.
That's awesome. Do you have plans to maybe try to go?
That is the goal.
That is,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
At this time, we should be ready to go. And so that's all we've been trying to do, is obviously boost enrollment, get more kids in, and really get parent involvement. How can we make this the best school for you? Our mission, also our own mission, is we want it to be where you don't want to leave our school. We want you upset. Why do we have to leave? And fortunately, we have some parents here, they don't want their kids to leave. Unfortunately, we're not going to 9th grade, so they're going on to high school. But that's what we want. We don't want you to leave. I'm talking about if you come to volunteer, love the environment, create community within the school where this is our school, not our school. And so that's kind of our goal.
How big is your school? What's enrollment right now?
100 students right now,
Right.
from
100.
the 6 weeks to the 8th grade.
That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
So initially high school, then peeled back, no high school. I'd like to get back there again. Can you talk about what that is? I know there are a lot of people who start schools that are probably listening to this and kind of curious. Every grade has its own challenges, unique size. What is it? Why did you ultimately peel back from it? And
when you run into high school, that's a whole different monster, whole different thing. I always tell parents, you can't look at private Christian education as an expense. You have to look at it as an investment. And when kids are getting a little bit older, they get a little more, hey, I want this, I want that. And we ran into some hiccups with it. Really wasn't getting the numbers we were looking for with it, and made the decision, hey, we're going to dial it back. Let's build up lower, and let's come back at it when we have the numbers we're looking for. And that's kind of the fork in the road we met. And from then, that's what we've been working towards back. And my faith is out. I know all of ours are, that we'll get there in the next few years.
amen.
When you have your students, so I'm just curious from a growth perspective, do you, and you want to grow it, do you see areas where, or instances where parents or and maybe even the community or the church don't want it to grow? They want it to stay where it is because it's contained and safe. Do you know what I mean? Like ours, the school our daughter's at, there are people that are like, no more building. We don't want any more expanding. When you start growing, you start bringing in different problems. You start, then you look more like the regular high school, the public high school. You don't feel like that small community school. Do you have instances like that?
Yeah, we've had some. So parents are really looking forward to those small class sizes. They're looking forward to having less than 10 students in that classroom, so that teacher has a lot of that one-on-one time with those students. And so that has been a question. Well, if we do increase enrollment, what does that look like?
Yes.
So we're going through surveys right now after our first year, stepping into it and trying to figure out, well, what is the best way to move forward? We have several processes that we go through in order to enroll a student. So that kind of protects us on that side as well.
Okay. Yes, like vetting, basically, in a way, if you have to use a word.
Yes, ma'am.
And we had to do that and really have to sharpen on it, because within the last, 7 to 8 months, we've had a really big influx in enrollment, which has got us to the number we are now, heavy. And so, but with that, I think if your foundation is right, if your foundation with your teachers, your parents, and understanding this is our school, this is our way, and not, what's the word I'm looking for, compromising those things. And by that, I'm of the position where if it does grow, if those classroom sizes are a little bit more than what a parent may want and like, I think our foundation is strong enough that we can handle it, and the kids that are coming in will fall in line with the rest of them.
You said it right, no compromising.
Yes.
That was really good.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask next is, after 35 years, you have to have some kind of bedrock foundational principles, biblical principles maybe that, is there a statement of faith that's signed? How have you maintained that?
Yes, so we have the tenets of faith. There is 12 of them right now. We just had to add a recent one this year.
We've added some,
As we started.
What'd you add? Come on. What'd you add?
We started our basketball back up at the school this year. So as we were introducing other people back into the school and allowing them to come use our activity center. Jonathan, you want to talk about what we added?
I think all Christian schools have had to add some things in recent, and just what's just going on in the world.
Sure.
And to protect our kids and to afford our kids to be kids. And when
we talking about the gender stuff?
Yes.
Yes. We have to do that.
Yeah.
And we had a second grade girls basketball team, first year ever playing sports. Parents first year their children ever playing sports. So you can imagine the first game was you'd have thought it was game 7 in the finals.
Right.
I've got moms out there screaming. We're getting technical fouls. It's a second grade girls game.
Right.
The score was 16-8. You act like they were putting up 100 points. It was amazing, and it was just beautiful. And it was beautiful for our kids to be kids. Now, prior to the league starting, we had to put some things, some tenets of faith, and some new things a part of our rules and policies just to protect our kids.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily something that you want to talk about, but you have to do.
Yep.
And so I think, like I said, all Christian schools have had to do some things in recent to not compromise at the expense of making, being cool.
Well, and I think that's what I think is so tricky, because there are a lot of different Christian schools that don't do that.
Right.
And then there are some that do. And I think that is something we talk a lot about on here, for parents to be aware of what their priorities are. Some don't mind. Some don't mind if it's an evangelical style school. Some don't mind if it's discipleship. I love that there is a mission statement. I love that there's a statement of faith, that we sign it, and that I know every other parent's going to sign it, because it is a protection piece. And you use that word, and I love that, because I do think we're protecting our kids. While teaching them, here's what the Bible says about that, and in a way that obviously does not, is not hateful, is not bigoted, but is just, here we are. This is what it's about, and we need to protect kids in that way. And it's awkward and uncomfortable, but I would guess some of that is why you have an influx of families who say we want that too.
We're getting it a lot now from the public school system, and we're also getting teachers from the public school system.
Are you?
Yes.
And with that, when they sign these things, the first class of the day is Bible. I don't care if you're 6 weeks old. I don't care if you're in 8th grade.
That's how you start every day.
Every day at 9:15 after breakfast, we're all in Bible. And they will all learn the Word of God. That's we don't compromise on that.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we've had some parents that they didn't want their kids to learn that. They didn't want their kids to pray. And we have to say, well, Harvest Christian School is probably not the school for you.
It's not the
And-
Really?
And we've had to turn them away.
not the
That's
fit.
really interesting to me. What do you think people who came to Harvest Christian School
With the word Christian.
and then thought, I don't really want them praying?
No prayer.
What was that about?
So I think that some people choose a private education for safety reasons, and there's other reasons within, this is why I want my child here at this school. And so although it does say Harvest Christian School, their main goal is safety.
Safe.
Yes.
Let me put my child in an environment that maybe I couldn't have growing up, the opportunity to. And so when we talk to a lot of those parents that have had that issue, their number one concern was safety. Well, this is what's happening in the public school, so we want them in a
Safe.
private school to be safe.
Okay.
And so I think kind of when they see the name, they ignore some of those other things because they know that they're going to be safe here. And then the questions arise as because like we said, the tenets of faith or our mission statement, it's stated in our application process. Then we have a parent interview and it's stated there, and then it's stated in enrollment. And so sometimes along the way, you're like, okay, well, now that I'm reading through this might not be the right fit for us because I wanted this.
And if I can add something, when you're dealing with private schools, private Christian schools with parents who are paying, a lot of times parents will say, well, since I'm paying, I want this and this. And, we have to say, this isn't Burger King. You can't have it your way. And we have to let them know you're not gonna come and pick and choose, well, I want my child in this and I don't want him in that. And that's just not what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that every administrator is going to have to run through with the parents, especially with these newer parents. They have a different way of parenting and what they want for their kids. And just have to say, these are our rules and this is how we run things.
That's a hard line sometimes, I think, for administrators to follow. And I also think there's that heartbreaking piece of it too, because I would guess, would you want those kids in, because that is where they will hear the word, right? You're going to meet Jesus where he's at, but you can't do it if you can't follow.
Right. And I don't think you can compromise our position for someone else's, like being caught up as an administrator. You always want your enrollment up. I want more kids, but at what cost?
Right.
At what cost or compromise? And we cannot compromise our position. That's that we can't.
And I think we win souls that way too, because I've heard parents say, and they'll come back, maybe years later, or we'll enroll in August and they'll say come December, hey, my child has really taught me about Christ. She has really taught me the word. She is learning things. And that's starting at kindergarten. That's starting in our 3-year-old classroom. The parents are like, well, we're learning. They want us to get into church. And so here it is. Well, we have church services for the school that you visit one Sunday out the month, invite them into the church. And so we're coming to church today. We're coming to church this Sunday. And that's because their child has gone home and they've seen them, okay, your head is hurting. Well, let me pray for you. And the child has put their hands on their parent's head and has prayed over them. And so that kind of helps you to win those souls, because that's what we're doing. This is kingdom work.
Kingdom work,
and so,
right.
And that makes a difference too.
You have seen parents, adults, brought into Harvest Church because of the
Their
kids
school.
you've taught.
Yes,
Because
sir.
every kid in our school
Yes, sir.
doesn't go to our church.
Okay.
And that's fine. So I know some schools you have to go. Every kid doesn't.
Right.
Now,
And
they
some
might go-
schools aren't associated with the church, so it's so different.
And that's fine. And we've seen over time, you look up on Sunday, and, hey, what are you doing here? And they might come on Education Sunday when we invite all our parents from the school. The kids might get up and sing or do something, and the parents come. And then you start seeing them on, it's Wednesday. What are you doing here? And
Great.
You mentioned
Wow.
safety. I thought this was really interesting because I was reading a story here recently, specifically about a boarding school in Philadelphia. It's a charitable organization where kids of a certain need are afforded a scholarship to live on campus 5 days a week. And one of the primary reasons that the administrator said that they come is for safety. And I think that's probably something we're hearing a lot about in cities across the country. Is that what you're hearing from a lot of students or parents these days? Safety, or what are you hearing?
Or is it Christian background, or is it
I
a
think
mix?
that it's both. I think I talk to every parent that comes through. We both do. And the first thing I have to let you know is your child is safe. You're dropping your student off as early as 7:30, picking them up at 5:15, and your one concern as a mom, as a dad, is my child safe here? I don't care about how good your education is and your auxiliaries and what you guys provide. Are they physically safe? And then I can get into everything that we offer.
So that is of
And so
paramount
safety
importance.
is at the pinnacle.
Yep.
I have a parent who we take kids early at 6 weeks. Mom had to go back to work. So I'm talking about 2 months out, 2.5 months.
Right.
They're dropping her baby off. And she's a mess.
mess.
She's a wreck. She's a wreck. Picking her child up every other day at 2 o'clock, picking him up early. I just don't know. And she needs to know he's safe. So I want to know his allergies, and I want to know this, and I want to know what time did he lay down, and I want to know what foods work for him. Hey, he didn't eat today. So that communication of knowing what's going on in his day is all a part of his safety. And so that's what parents really want to know, is their child is safe.
And we've learned to kind of help them pray. I think the parent that you're talking about, prayer for them in the morning, was always helpful. Like us meeting them at the door and saying a prayer with them. It helped to build the trust, which then helped now. Okay, we're
problem.
dropping them off and walking out the door. And it was, at first it was like, oh, I'm gonna hold, and I'm not ready to let go. And now it's just like, okay, see you later.
That's
so it does. It makes a
huge.
difference.
And that's a big deal in a smaller school too. I mean, I would actually say you're not actually super small. With 100 students, that's not crazy small. I mean, we know schools that have 25 students.
Wow.
But I think that's how you also then just, like you said, kind of grow the kingdom, increase the kingdom, because that rubs off, right? Then that mom can go to work and she has a little bit of that on there, and she has
doesn't
on into
worry.
her and she has on into her workplace, and it carries. So it's not just about the building.
When you
that's
were
huge.
here visiting, what was interesting to me was, 35 years you guys have been doing it. You know how this works. You came to visit, and here at the foundation, schools from all over the country get together and they talk about best practices.
Yes.
Are there things that you still feel after 35 years Harvest needs to learn or could incorporate? Or I assume you're always growing and challenging yourself and or learning from other schools. You never really want to be stagnant, I assume, when you're running a school.
I think
That's
it's
a good question.
I would say every day we're learning. This is we're going into our I say second year, but she says interim year. I don't like this.
Well, for example, one of the things you said you wanted to implement, I know you were looking at this studio, and you said you wanted to implement like a broadcast facility or something.
So
for kids,
things like this, we're really want to provide our kids options.
Yes.
That you can be anything you want to be in the world. You just don't have to be an actor or athlete or whatever. You can be anything. I was telling my boys, being smart is cool. And so now we have a broadcast room, and we're trying to develop. As a matter of fact, we were talking about that before the podcast started. We're starting that. We got VR coming next year, a VR class where they're going to be learning things like that. They play the violin. And so just trying to add as many things as we can. We're trying to jam as many things as we can in that school day to provide our kids options.
Yeah.
Yes.
And options in life, you become more well-versed. And so you just not know how to run one way, you can run multiple ways. And that's what we try to do. So what can we add and what can we get better at? Everything.
Yeah.
We can learn everything.
Yeah.
When this podcast goes up, I'll probably ask you a bunch more questions because I want to learn. And you never stop learning. The day that we think just because we've been open 35 years, there's a school down the street that's probably been open 2 weeks, and they're doing something that we aren't doing that could probably help us get enrollment up or get our name out more or anything. Everything. So what can we do better? Everything.
Is it
Exposure.
competitive out there to run a Christian school? Is it competitive? And I know that's a weird word because
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
do you have new schools coming up attracting interest from your students or vice versa? And I mean, I think we would all like to see it grow.
Yes.
It's not prolific Christian schools.
Right.
But
Right, like,
are
do you want to
seeing
be
more?
worried when a new school pops, or do
Yeah.
you want to say, good for them? Can we all come together? Because the more there are of Christian schools, we have more love for Jesus, right?
Right.
I just think that's important, but
I think I would say this, and we actually had the opportunity to meet with most of the with administrators and principals all of Kansas City, from the top to the bottom, from Summit to Maranatha, all the way down. Even
Okay.
Northland was there.
Yeah.
Everybody was there.
Okay.
And so we're the babies in there. We're the first year administrators. These are all principals and administrators. And I said something. I said, Christian schools, there's no really any conference. There's no, these are our district. We're kind of all on our own. I said, and I was really grateful for being there because it felt like it wasn't about, all right, I need more of your kids and I need this. It was like, we're together. And I think it is and maybe in the past it's been a competition because obviously we need enrollment up. Public schools don't have that problem. We always are competing with each other. Yeah, we love God, but I need some more kids. And so I think that for me, if the child is in a Christian environment, yes, I want them at my school. But if they're in a Christian environment and they're protected and they're safe, I'm okay with that. And so, but to your question, it may be a little silent in there because you want them at your school. How would you not? Because every principal and administrator is going to say, my school is the best school out there. Why wouldn't I?
right.
I'm going to want them here because I know we can give them something nobody can. But if a child is safe in a Christian environment, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to the politics of school choice?
Yes, we
Yes, we
are.
are.
Why?
How come?
Whew. So when we went to the meeting that he's talking about, we heard about school choice in Colorado.
Yeah.
That was different for us to hear
Very.
about too. Shocking, because our school is attached to our church. It's the ministry of the church. A lot of Christian schools are not ministry of their churches. They're just
Renting.
they're just on their own. And so when it came to hearing about those things, and then the school is allowed to do whatever they want because they don't have the same principles of the church, that's a conflict of interest. And so it, to me, opened my eyes. Okay, so the school's allowing this, but this is
Or
not
they're
what
not
we
protected by the
believe
church.
in. Yes. And so when
And that makes
we,
it, I'm sorry, harder or easier?
harder.
I would
To
say
me,
it's
it was harder.
So
Because there's no foundational principles that you're standing upon. So if I wanted to have, the gender roles inside of my school, I could, because I don't have these principles that are backed by our church. And so churches were, okay, let's put this school up, let's take this school underneath our wing, and now we have these principles. Now we have these foundations, and that helps to pull us together.
So
Okay.
10, 12 years ago, our school name was Faith Academy. And
Yes.
most schools know us by that.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when I went through there at school, we actually played Northland Christian when they were the school with the carpet basketball court
Yeah, right, right.
years ago. And so I loved playing there, obviously. I love that gym. Like, the carpet court's amazing. You don't
Yeah.
slip. It's great. It just, until you fail and you got a rug burn, you'll never forget.
Right.
But we changed our name to Harvest Christian School because of Harvest Church. And we had, the whole 501c3 come up under there because it protects schools. And with schools being sometimes out there by yourself, you are now in a position where if you say no to these people and not to these people, you run into a whole lot of things.
Yep.
And after hitting the school choice thing with those administrators, there's schools in Colorado and just things that are happening all around the country. It's really unfortunate. And it's tough because now you're compromising and you really don't have a choice.
No.
But the school choice helps you to have, I think it's helping because you then are exposed to different choices that you have.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of
different
parents knew, okay, well, public school is free. How do I get my child into a Christian school? What steps can I do? And so now there's scholarships and there's everything that you can do and you can apply and now you can enroll in these schools and you have a choice. It's not, okay, I just have to go to public school.
Right.
These parents now have an option to send their students somewhere else.
So you have, anecdotal data. You've probably talked with parents that said if they had the ability to acquire the funds that the state spends on students, if they could control those funds themselves, they would choose Harvest over public school.
Yes, sir.
You're hearing that.
Yes, sir. And we see that a lot with our pre-K 4-year-olds because in your mind as a parent, okay, I'm paying for daycare, I'm paying for school from the time that they're 6 weeks old to the time that they're 4. And then after that, it's, okay, well, I know that I'm supposed to stop. And so our goal is, well, let's show you what we have to offer. And then you can see, I want my child to roll over to kindergarten. And the expense becomes less, of course, when you come over to the K through 8th grade side. But it's also, this is an investment, like Jonathan said. You were already spending the money, so continue spending the money for 8 years or 12 years to give your child a better education, to make sure that your child and your student has the right foundation. And we see that so many times.
If the state of Missouri, say, were to give every parent, if we had universal school choice in Missouri, and every family got, what do we say, $6,000?
I think it was $6,000 is what it is.
So let's call it $6,000. Every family gets to have that and spend it as they'd like for their kids. Do you imagine enrollment at Harvest School would just be huge?
Yes.
You think so?
I would
think
say,
so.
I think, like Nia said, every parent in the world knows from 6 weeks to 4 years old, I have to pay whatever the going rate is.
Yep.
They know that. And when the child's going to kindergarten, every parent goes, whew, glad that's over. One down, I got one more little one coming, and after that's a break. It's over. And we say, no, you don't, it's not over.
Yeah.
Now, finances obviously sometimes can restrict parents, like you said, and so I would say yes.
Yeah.
We tried. That's where we had to roll up our sleeves and let's go find it. Let's go find every kind of A+ scholarship and the A scholarship and whatever funding we can for this parent.
Yes.
And if it's state funding, how can we get them here?
Yep.
I don't care. We got to do this and do that. Let's find it because it's ultimately for the child.
Yes.
I think that's I think it's important for people to hear too, because when safety is apparent, when safety is the first thought, I want my child safe in school, and universal school choice would provide a certain amount of dollars, would allow that family to keep those dollars and have their child where they need to be in a safe environment. And then of course the caveat, or the next piece being the Christian piece of things. I just think that would be a huge benefit for people to be learning about with correct information, understanding you don't have to take that money if you don't, if you want your child to go onto that public school, go ahead. But if you don't, this is the avenue.
It's infuriating to consider that there are parents who are thinking to themselves, I don't feel my child is safe, but I can't afford him or her to not go to that school. To make the choice. It's just a terrible thing that we've made parents have to choose between
But
safety
you also
or
have parents that
affordability.
say, well, I went to public school and look how I turned out.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have those parents.
Sure.
And so we kind of reversed how we did it. In the past, to grow our school, we've always pushed the school and we have an early learning center. So we flipped it. We're going to push the early learning center, and then once from there, if your child stays through the process, this is where they'll go. You walk in our school, you'll see college flags and banners from all over the country, from HBCU to every SEC, ACC, and those are also schools that our kids have gone off to.
That's great.
And we tell parents, hey, they stay with the program. We've had kids that are doctors and lawyers and work at Honeywell, CEO of banks. And yes, we have some professional athletes. We have those as well. But if they stay here, we've seen the product that we're sending off. We've had principals from public schools all around Kansas City call. Hey, where are these kids coming from? Hey, I just want to say we've got blase up here. Thank you. You're sending a help up here. And so we tell our parents, if they stay with us, I promise you, with 35 years of this, you're going to get a good product.
Amen.
That's
well,
awesome.
We are praying for Harvest Christian School to grow. I can't wait for the high school. We'll have you back maybe, and we'll hear
That
that
would
you'll
be
have
That would be awesome.
9, 10, 11, 12. That'll be
Yes.
fantastic. And you guys are young, like I said, so you've got like a whole new generation coming up.
Yes, sir.
Another
That's very
35
cool.
years.
Yes, sir.
Started to
Another
see-
yes,
knew I was
sir.
getting older when I was enrolling kids of parents I went to school with. I said, I think I'm getting old.
Well, thank you both very much for sharing the story of Harvest Christian School. That's tremendous.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you for
So
having
glad
us.
to have you guys here. And I love, too, the partnership. I think it's another way to talk just a little bit about Herzog itself. Like, they were up here for a tour.
Yes.
Schools can come and take a look at things and just see what I think what the tools are that Herzog has to offer.
And educational savings accounts. That's
Yes.
a resource that the foundation will plug you into and teach schools about how students can access those funds to be helpful to find a Harvest Christian School, particularly if you're in the state of Missouri. So with that, HerzogFoundation.com. And our thanks to Harvest again. And that'll do it for this episode of Making the Leap. Hope you'll give it a 5-star review and a written review. And until next week, we'll see you back here, I hope, on Making the Leap.
Making the Leap is a podcast presentation courtesy of the Herzog Foundation. We'd love your feedback by rating us and commenting on the show.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Making the Leap.